to start already. So, good evening, good morning, everyone, depending on the location. And thanks a lot for being here. In this next half an hour, I would like to give you a quick taste of myself, what it is to apply for MBB, and finish off with a short example that you get an idea about what to expect. So I am Mattijs from consultant at Bain and Company, mainly located at the Brussels office. And before working at Bain, I applied for several consulting firms as well, like the MBB, and I landed several offers as well. During my time at Bain, I mainly worked in two practices. The first one was the private equity practice, and the second one was more the industrial practice. And besides that, I was part of the recruitment team. So meaning that I screened and the CVs and cover letters, and also conducted interviews. And in the meantime, since then, I have coached more than 150 people reaching an offer at McKinsey, Bain, or BCG. So that was a quick update about myself. Then I would like to proceed with like the main chunks of an interview process. So the first step is for you guys to draft the CV and cover letter. And there it's important to answer three key important questions. Like, why do you want to work at a specific company? Why do you want to work in that office? And why are you the perfect candidate? Then the second and third chunk go a bit hand in hand because they are all at the interview process itself. So secondly, you do have the behavioral questions, and most of the time the behavioral questions are very typical and common. So why are you the perfect leader? Give me an example where you were working in a team and there was a disagreement and you solved it, or give me an example of a personal failure and how did you deal with it and what was the solution. So that are all examples of typical questions that are commonly asked. And then for the third main element are the case interviews. What I do propose there is that you first start preparing on your own by reading case books. You have then the case in point from, you have case interview secrets, etc. So that are books that you can find online. In the second phase, you can start with practicing with peers, with colleagues, with people that are also applying for MBB. And then in the third phase, I do recommend some coaching sessions, but only in the third phase when you're already up to speed, know what is an interview, etc. Next, I would like to share three top tips with you before you start applying for MBB consulting. First tip is, on average, I do see that you need to prepare 3 to 6 months in advance before having the first round of interviews. The main reason there is that, like case interviewing, it's really a skill that you need to develop, and a skill you only master after frequently practicing. So what I do recommend is that you practice, for example, every weekend 1 to 2 hours for then 3 to 6 months. Instead of practicing 2 to 3 full weekends just before the interview, because that's not going to work. It's like learning a new language. My second tip is that it's better to also apply for second-tier consulting firms to practice and to get already a real feel of what the interview process is about, and to plan that before your MBB interview. Another advantage of that is that if the MBB interview doesn't go well, you do have already a backup and can consider to work for another firm. And then the third tip is to also attend events, because there are a couple of reasons for that. First reason is if you still need to have the interview first, that they invite you for the interview. That's the first reason. And then the second reason is that it's also for you to get to know what is consulting work and if you would like it or not. So that's a perfect moment to ask. What I propose is that I will answer the question at the end of the session, if okay for you. But if you do have questions in the meantime, don't hesitate to put them in the chat. So we will cover them at the end of the session. Then during your practicing period, your 3 to 6 months practicing period, I believe there are 3 most important skills to master to really succeed the interview. The first one is framework drafting. So most of the time you'll see there are, let's say, 5 to 10 typical frameworks, but it's really important that you master the skill to develop frameworks yourself. I can guarantee you already that you will fail or that people fail the interview if you just copy paste a framework from a textbook, like the typical market entry M&A framework. It's really important to adapt it towards your case, that you really answer the question. Secondly is top-down communication. One example is that during your recommendation, first start with your recommendation and don't say what you are doing or developing or calculating. That's also a skill that you need to master as a consultant. And the third one is quick math. So be sure that you can solve or do quick calculations, multiplications, without errors. And especially the last one is important. So it's better to be a bit slower and correct than to be super quick and wrong. And then we are coming already towards the case example. Let me quickly check in the chat if there are some questions already. I can handle them now already. So the names of the textbook, indeed, one is Case in Point and the other one is Case Interview. Secrets. There you go. So what are some study resources you recommend for learning quick math and frameworks in general, if there is a source for case preparation overall? So yeah, there is a source for case preparation overall. These are like the 2 books that I recommend. One is Case in Point and the other one is then Case Interview Secrets. So let me put it in the chat. And then learning quick math, there is an easy solution. Just Google it. So you can Google quick math drills, and then you'll find online sites, websites with some where you can practice. And there, I do recommend, if mathematics is not your, let's say, most favorite one, your favorite course, just practice like 5 minutes on a daily basis. That's way better than practicing for a long time. And then related to frameworking, well, in those textbooks, you will learn already or see already 10 frameworks. And then it's up to you to really practice with peers and with the case coach to start to develop that you can draft your frameworks yourself. If there are no specific questions at this moment, I do propose that we can start with a short example of what could consist of a case. So what I do propose for everyone is that you just take paper and a pen and try to solve like it's a real case interview for now. So the question is, can you estimate like the size of vodka in Russia? And we'd like to see a value. So not only volume, but also value. Let's take 1 to 2 minutes and first draft a framework yourself that thinks is appropriate to answer that question. So did everyone had the time to think about their framework? Is there someone who would like to present his or her framework? Yeah. Sana, I see that you're raising your hand. Please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear properly. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your explanation and for today's event. I'm not sure of my way of thinking around this framework, but I thought this way. We have a question saying, "What's the market vodka market in Russia?" That means we're gonna look at the population. What's the estimate of population? What is the population of Russia? We have the number. Considering that most people drink, we assume that most majority of people drink. So, what is the percentage of people over 18 of this population? Assuming that the drinking age starts from 18, then I thought of two other levels, considering in moderate that 50% of them drink on a daily basis, while the other 50 drink occasionally, maybe assuming as well twice a week. So then multiplying these figures, taking a number of population, which I didn't, let's say it's X, and then taking the percentage of this X of the people over 20, 18s, 18, and then dividing 50-50, that there is two bottles per person per week for 50% of them, and seven bottles, seven maybe seven, not bottles, maybe glass for for the other 50%. And doing this simple math, we generate a primary number of the market size, and that's it. I think. I hope I'm on the right track. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay, sure. Sana, thanks a lot for the explanation and the example. So I believe that most of the elements are there, although some more top-down communication would be a bit more helpful. So what I would do is to start with saying, look, to estimate the size of the Russian vodka markets, there are two main drivers. The first one is the volume, and the second one is the price. And on the volume part, you elaborated already a lot, and that's indeed driven by people who are eligible at drinking age, multiplying with their, let's say, frequency of drinking. And then indeed the frequency of drinking can be in liters or in a bottle or whatever on a frequent basis, let's say on a weekly basis. And then regarding the price, we can estimate or make an assumption about a certain price. Or we can say, look, there are two different type of products. We do have the premium vodka and the more regular one with two different price segments. And then we can have an average price for each segment. So it's important to first start with your approach, like the main drivers, and that's volume and price. Then to go one level deeper by explaining what drives these drivers, and then to put numbers on it. So let me present a solution. Most important here is to notice as well, it's one example of a solution. There is no right or wrong. Sorry. So there we go. So on the left-hand side, you see the volume breakdown with volumes per person, number of person, indeed the number of inhabitants in Russia, percentage of eligible drinking, and percentage who do drink vodka. Because it's not as you're eligible, so indeed above 18 years old, above 20 years old, that you would like to drink vodka. And then on the right-hand side, we do have an average price in dollars per liter. So you can clearly see that we'll have Russian vodka market size in dollars because the units match. And that's a common mistake that I see frequently. So please always down the units because they are very important to not make mistakes. So in the first phase, you draft your framework, and then in the second phase, we can put numbers on it. And here we will do it bottom up. So we will have numbers for inhabitants, 150 estimated. Then percentage eligible. So let's say that the Russian population, the average age is 40 years old. So equal distribution, people are between 0 and 80 years old, and they do drink between 20 and 80 years old. So eligible percentage is 75. And let's now say that of this percentage that is eligible, that 2/3 do drink vodka. So then you have 75 million persons, and then they do drink 10 liters a year. So 10 liters a year, if you break it down on a weekly basis, that's 20 centiliters. So let's say a couple of shots on a weekly basis. So then you have a volume number, 750 million liters. Then we go to the right-hand side for a price. So let's say that the split between regular vodka and premium vodka is 50-50. $5 a liter for the regular one and $5.15 for the premium one. So it gives an average price of $10 a liter. So given that answer, we do see an average a Russian vodka market size of $7.5 billion. So this question, estimating the Russian vodka size, is most of the time like one typical question out of the whole case. It's most of the time like market sizing can be the start of a case. Is there someone who still has questions regarding the case example itself? Or did someone had a total different approach? So I see a question in the chat, how can you make up the price? So by doing a market sizing, it's always based on assumptions, right? But you need to try to come to a certain level that your assumptions make sense. In my opinion, I do have an idea about the price of vodka because I go to the supermarket and see the price of a bottle. I'm currently living in Europe, so I would say that prices are a bit more expensive than, let's say, $5 and $15. So there I do agree. But on the other hand, in Russia, I assume that the price is a bit lower. So think about your real life, your own life, and try to make a good backup assumption. So next question is, can we chat GPT while interviewing? To be honest, I wouldn't recommend it. The reason for the interviews is that they would like to see your reasoning and your behavior and communication as a consultant. So the goal is not to have a clear answer. It doesn't really matter if you come up with a number, if it's 7 billion or 8 billion or whatever. They most likely would like to see your reasoning and critical sense. So there I don't recommend to use ChatGPT or other help, to be honest. Then next question, is it kind of guesstimation? Yes, it's guesstimation, but on the other hand, it's a market sizing as well. So indeed, you're estimating, but it's bottom up, so it doesn't come out of the blue. So based on your experience, are you using ChatGPT through your daily life, I assume? Yes, so I do use ChatGPT during my work, but I only see it as an extra source. Like you're having, for example, a search engine like Google, so it can help to generate some ideas, etc. So yes, it's a helpful source, but maybe not really during case interview itself. Is there someone who has other questions? Did he assume the number of inhabitants? Yeah, indeed, good question. I can elaborate a bit more. So what I do know, I'm living in Europe, but I know, for example, the number of inhabitants in the US, it's approximately 350 million, I would say. And I know then that the Russian population is smaller. So that's the reason that I came up with the number 150. If you make the assumption of 100 or 120, it could be correct as well. But please don't make the assumption of having, let's say, 1 billion inhabitants. How can you make your case more unique? I feel like the solutions are very similar. Yeah, Zoe, that's true. To be honest, this is a case that I'm sometimes giving in a real interview, but that's only the very small part. So most of the time, this is like the opening of a case, but it can be part of an M&A case or etc. So it's true that it feels that this is a bit straightforward, but it's just to show you what is a framework and indeed an easy one and how you need to communicate. So next question is, what if our estimates are completely wrong? For example, they asking about physics particles. It's always important to break down towards the driver that you have a current knowledge of. What you can also do if you don't have any idea is just ask. But it's better always to do propose and then say, is it right? For example, the number of inhabitants, I do believe that there are approximately 150 million because I know in the US there are living approximately 300 million and Russia, in terms of inhabitants, seems smaller to me. So is it the correct assumption or not? And then, how did you assume the number of inhabitants? First, you need to know which country you are talking about. Is it the world market or Russian vodka market? Of the Russian vodka market or only the market within Russia? A very good question, and indeed, you can interpret it both ways. So, in a typical case, they will give you a prompt, like a question, like I give now, like calculate this, or is it a good idea to invest in that company, or why did revenue decreased? And then it's time for you to ask clarification questions up to, let's say, 3 to 5. And the clarification question could be here, in which location are we looking? Do we look to Russian vodka in the global market, or do you only look to Russian vodka in Russia itself? So it could be a very good clarification question there. And then it's clear for you that it's only focusing on Russia in this case. Next question, what makes your case unique compared to others? Estimated numbers. For example, this is a market entry case, or let's say the start of a market guesstimation. In my coaching sessions and practicing sessions, I only use cases that I'm giving myself, so it are real interview cases. And this is only like the start of a case. It's a really, to be honest, it's not a difficult one. It's just to give you a taste and example in a very short time frame. So my cases are unique because I'm using cases for different framework, market entry, private equity, price increases, revenue increases, more customer behavior, etc. And I'm covering like all the different industries, like private equity, FMCG, the fashion industry, the more industrial industry, etc. And then a last question, Iona, the way you approach problem solving. Okay. Sorry, I maybe misinterpreted the previous question. So the case is indeed given to be sure or to show you how you solve a problem in a logical or in a logical way. Okay. So another question is, if you don't have non-traditional consulting background like HR, can you become a general consultant? I would say, of course, because at first sight there is no, let's say, typical background. Okay, you can argue that most of the consultants did study economics or engineering studies, but consulting firms, especially MBBs, are more looking to diversity. and diversity can also be found in backgrounds. So I really recommend for you to apply for MBB and just practice the interview process in a very good way. So yes, I do recommend it. And I can also see within my colleagues do have a very diverse background. So for example, some studied history, some psychology, there are some engineers, some studied some more environmental studies, etc. And next question is like, how many cases did you prepare before landing MBB? Again, it's not a straightforward answer, but I recommend to at least solve 20 to 30 cases, but you can go up. I have seen candidates going it up to 100 cases. But for sure, you need to do 20 cases at least, I would say, to really master the skill of developing a framework, top-down communication, quick mathematics, etc. Does case for MBB candidates differ from undergrads? And if so, how should MBBs prep? So the skills you need to master are similar, the approach is similar. Um, the only difference could be that MBB candidates do need to pass one extra round or one extra interview, but that's really depending on the firm and the location. So you can request that beforehand. And in terms of case interviews itself, they are pretty similar. So I wouldn't say there is a major difference, to be honest. They only expect a bit more the older you are, I would say, the more experience you should have. So that needs to be a bit reflected within your casing, but not within the specific skills, but more like in the behavioral questions that you can show typical work environment related answers. Then there is one direction. It's a must-have in MBB to be accepted. I don't fully agree. They are also hiring for undergrads, to be honest. So I do see there are two tracks. You have the undergrad track and the MBA track. Okay. What are common mistakes people make while doing the case? So then I would like to refer to the skills you need to master. So not communicating top down, not having a bespoke framework, an adapted framework, and making mistakes on the mathematics. So these are the three major mistakes that I do see, or the main reasons why people fail at cases. And what I would like to add there, like the three skills you need to master, they're all three skills that you can practice. It's just a matter of practicing, because I can clearly see that people who put in all the effort, do invest the time, take the 3 to 6 months to practice on a more than weekly basis, have a way higher success rate compared to others. Based on your experience, which case do you consider the most complex? It's not a straightforward answer again, because I can tell you that so my cases are based on real examples that I solved in the past. And what I do is based on the feeling, on the way how it is going, based on the candidate center, I try to tweak the case a little. So it's all depending a bit on what is meant by hard. Some people struggle a bit more with mathematics, and or some people struggle a bit more with communication, etc. And I always try to test the skill they master the less. Do you recommend same level and resource for interview prep, like for someone with traditional consulting backgrounds? To be honest, yes, I do recommend to say the same resources. The only difference you will see if you do have, for example, a more economical or mathematical background, then maybe some quick mathematical drills practicing is less required. So you will go faster through the materials. But I do recommend the same sources. What is your advice to pass testing process before the interview? The skills you are testing are similar compared to the interview. So what I do recommend there is to start already like preparing for the real case. Then one question, when would you use a hypothesis-driven approach when analysis bottom-up? You can always work on a certain hypothesis, but here it's a market entry, so it's a bit more difficult. But if the question, for example, is why did revenue decline or why did the market decline, you can already test your hypothesis from the start. So you mentioned that someone with prior work experience is going for associate level will have different questions during interviews. What I meant there is during the behavioral question, and they are asking for a time that you worked in a team. They do expect that you giving an example from your previous working experience, and if you're only undergrad or student, they cannot expect that. So the difference is very small. It's just a moment for you to show that you do already have the working experience. Do they hire people with working experience without having an MBA? Yes, they do. So they set up a different track for it. So it's not because you don't have an MBA, but you do have working experience that they're not hiring you. So yes, they do. Okay. I would say thanks a lot all for your time. I wish you all good luck with the preparation of the interview. And I can share with you a unique code. So if you are a bit further within the process and you consider some coaching sessions, you can use my coupon code to get like 10% discount for the coaching sessions. I will also share the whole presentation afterwards so you can have a look. So you receive the presentation in your email box. And if you still have questions, don't hesitate to reach out via chat. I will answer all the questions personally and separately. Thanks a lot and enjoy the rest of your day. We keep in touch via chat.